If you've seen anything about Speaking Latino before, you know that I talk about how varied Spanish is from one country to the next, how Spanish slang changes significantly from one country to the next. And today I want to share with you 8 tricks to how you can practice your Spanish slang and your local Spanish so you can become fluent in the local Spanish of a specific country or region. The first trick is to cross generations, and what I mean by that is to speak with people outside of your age group. If you're in your early 20s, obviously you're going to be around people in your early 20s, more than you are going to be around people in their 50s, 60s, or 70s. At the same time, you're probably more likely to be in people around your same age group than you are to be around 3, 4, 5-year-old kids. Now, I promise you, 3, 4, 5-year-old kids are really fun because they don't care if you screw up. They don't care if you talk funny. Other than the occasional comment of, hey, you talk funny, they're going to be willing to practice with you and talk with you. And you're going to learn a lot from them in terms of your language, and you're going to have a much richer vocabulary as you reach out to other generations as well. So you need to make a conscious, concerted effort to speak to people outside of your age group. The second tip is to know the language you're learning. And that means you need to understand where your teacher's from. You need to understand what city the teacher's from, what country the teacher's from, what region. You need to understand where your textbooks are from. Are they from Mexico? Are they from Spain? Are they from Argentina? These factors make a big difference in the type of language that you're learning. If you want to make a comparison with English, think of how a Texan speaks compared to how somebody from Boston speaks, or how somebody from the Deep South speaks, or even somebody from British Columbia or Canada, anywhere else in Canada speaks. There are differences that you as a native English speaker can probably hear. Well, the same thing exists in Spanish. And so what you want to do is you want to be conscious of the exact Spanish that you're learning, because once you reach a certain level, you'll start understanding those nuances. You'll start being able to mimic those nuances and start using them in your language and adjusting your language to be able to communicate with people better. The third trick, and this is probably the most important of the 8 tricks here, is that you need to vary your instructors. You can't get into the habit of sticking with the same teacher for a prolonged period of time. Obviously, you're going to have the same teacher for a class period or a semester, but what I'm talking about is don't stick with the same teacher for years. What will happen is you're going to get stuck into understanding that person's accent and how that person talks. And you're going to miss out on learning different accents from different countries, different vocabulary, and it's going to be much harder for you when you go abroad. I promise you, if you spend all of your time learning Mexican Spanish and then for some reason you're dropped into a group of Argentines or you're spending time in Argentina, life is going to be really difficult for you. However, if you've had an Argentine instructor, a Mexican instructor, Chilean instructor, and a Spanish instructor, then you're going to be much more comfortable around adjusting accents and adjusting vocabulary, and it'll make the transition quite a bit easier for you. And nowadays with the internet, even if you don't have direct, personal, one-to-one, face-to-face access with more than one teacher, the internet offers a variety of tools and options for you to hear other accents and to speak with other people through language exchanges, so you can become used to and you can vary your exposure to the different accents, different dialects, different vocabulary, different pronunciations, different intonations out there. So take advantage of those as well. Don't get in the habit of just sticking to going to class every day and having the same teacher for 2 years. Tip number 4 is to focus your vocabulary development. And what that means is focus on very common groups of words that you will be able to use the first day that you're in country or the first day that you're talking to people from a certain country. There are a couple different groups there. Obviously, one of the first groups is the naughty words. Naughty words, whether you use them or not, whether you want to use them or not, are words that you're going to hear pretty much your first day in country. whether it's being screamed on the street, screamed from a window in a building, maybe from a taxi driver, or just walking along, or the first person you encounter. Sometimes words just slip out from people and become a habit, and they don't even realize they're saying them. So you can learn some of the naughty words. But even if that's not the type of vocabulary you want to learn, another common group is filler words. That would be like well, things like that. Words that are really useful because not only will you sound more like a native speaker, it will also give you a moment to pause and think what you want to say at the same time as sounding natural. You can also try and identify other groups of words that you think will be useful to you and are specific to certain countries. Food words come to mind, for example. Obviously, food varies significantly from one country to the next. Chilean food is extremely different from Mexican food, and they have their own unique vocabularies. So if you learn those vocabularies, it will make your transition to a new country easier, quicker, and people will be thinking you are closer to a native speaker or at least a fluent Spanish speaker by focusing on those groups. Tip number 5 is a fun one. What you want to do is you want to go to a newsstand or a store, wherever you can find some newspapers, and you can even do this on TV as well. A lot of countries have TV programs focused on gossip. Yeah, gossip. Gossip is a great way to learn local Spanish and local slang words. You can read some of the pages about what's going on with actors, with singers, with politicians. These headlines are going to be fabulous. You're going to learn all kinds of words that you would have no exposure to at all otherwise, and that in fact oftentimes aren't documented anywhere. What you'll need to do is you'll need to talk to somebody, and a native, and ask them, hey, I've got this list of words. Can you explain to me what these words are? Because, like I said, you're not going to find them written in a lot of places. So just focus on learning the gossip, reading the gossip. By the way, it's fun. It helps you learn the culture of the country as well. It helps you keep in touch with what's going on, and it'll be useful for you to understand day-to-day conversations with people and even to participate a little bit more. So be sure to follow the gossip when you get to a new country. Trick number 6 is something I've covered in another video, so I'm just going to be brief here. What you want to do is you want to ignore what people say they say. What I mean by that is, what people say that they're saying isn't always, in fact, the way they're pronouncing a word. And so what this really means is that there will be a textbook pronunciation of how somebody says a phrase or a word, and there will be a real-life pronunciation. And so what you want to do is you want to focus on the real-life pronunciations. If you have a phrase written down and you walk up to somebody and say, please pronounce this phrase for me, they'll pronounce it, but they'll probably be more likely to give you the classroom pronunciation. And so what you want to do is you want to be able to hear those phrases, those words in a real-life setting. Step number 7 is listen to the rhythm and the intonation of the language. You'll find that certain countries are easy to identify. Chile, Argentina, Mexico to some extent, Spain, Puerto Rico are fairly easy in my case to understand. It gets a little more difficult for me if I listen to a Venezuelan and a Colombian, or sometimes a Dominican and a Puerto Rican. Natives can pick these out a lot easier than us adult language learners. However, you can still pick out a lot of these. So just focus on what you're hearing as people speak. Not so much the words, but how the voice goes up and down and the rhythms that you're hearing. In fact, you can even do it by watching people from far away where you can't hear what they're saying, but you can see how they're gesturing and how they're moving around. You can probably even hear them screaming at some point or another. You'll get some of these rhythms just by listening to people and by watching them. The final trick here is also a fun one, and that is pay attention to the gestures that people make. I love this one. This is really fun because what you'll find is most people don't realize that they're making gestures when they make them. They do it out of habit. And the other part of it is that most people in a country have similar gestures. they copy each other, and so what happens is everybody ends up using the same gestures. Now, as you come from outside of the country, these gestures will be foreign to you. You won't understand them. And what that means is, it's kind of cool. What it means is they'll catch your eye. Since they will be strange to you, you'll pick up on them quicker. So pay attention to these gestures. You know, one exercise you can do is you can go to a park one day, just sit down and people watch. Or even a busy street, you can just sit down somewhere and people watch. Watch them having conversations with each other. Watch the gestures that they're making. You can pick up these gestures, make some notes on the gestures, and then when you're around a native, you can say, hey, look, I saw this gesture. Can you explain to me the context or what it means? And as you start using these gestures, they'll become more natural for you, and you'll just, in fact, put them in the language yourself. And so that is another way for you to move closer to being fluent in a language. So there you go. Those are 8 tricks to learning Spanish slang and local country-specific Spanish. So if you like the video, do me a quick favor. I want you to subscribe to the YouTube channel and leave me a quick comment below with your personal suggestion on how people can learn Spanish slang. Thanks.